Alright folks, so in this video I'm going to discuss socialism. Listen, socialism, communism, Marxism, and you can add in there fascism, totalitarian. It's all 100% related. Two peas in a pod. And this ideology has transformed into the modern woke ideology. And I think you guys have no idea what you're dealing with and how dangerous this is. It's all complete BS. So, for example, let's say I'm a farmer in rural China and I work my ass off every single day, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I can produce the most rice out of everybody in the village, right? And I meet 150% of my production quota. And one of my neighbors, another Chinese farmer, he's completely lazy, sits on his ass, plays video games all day, doesn't want to do anything. When the time comes at the end of the year, in order for him to avoid the starvation, I have to share half of my crop with him. Does that sound like a fair deal to you? That's what socialism and communism is pushing for. You have to understand. It's literally stealing the fruits of another person's labor. I want you to really think about this throughout this video and how dangerous this ideology is and what you're actually supporting. I want to talk about Joseph Stalin. Many of you guys might have heard about the Holodomor, or a death by starvation, that happened in Ukraine between 1932 to 33. That was orchestrated by Stalin. He had a 5-year plan to rapidly industrialize the country, and the private land ownership was no longer possible. All the farmers in Ukraine, they were giving these insane quotas. These quotas were unachieved. When the farmers, they can't achieve these quotas, all of their crops would be taken away by the government. And many of these workers, they got sent to factories to produce metal and steel. And upwards of 4 million Ukrainians would die from the Holodomor. Well, fast forward 25 years down the road, Mao Zedong had a very similar plan. His Great Leap Forward. That was also a 5-year plan to rapidly industrialize the country. So after the death of Joseph Stalin, when Khrushchev took office, he announced that to the Soviet Union in 15 years' time, the Soviet Union would overtake the United States and become the #1 metal manufacturer of the world. And then Mao Zedong also made a very similar promise. And he told Khrushchev that in 15 years' time, China will be able to overtake the UK in terms of industrialization. So in 1958, Mao Zedong started the Great Leap Forward. Private land ownerships became impossible. Everybody got sent to these factories. They had these makeshift cells. Everybody had to produce these metals. But the thing is, China was not ready for rapid industrialization, and they could not produce these metals like the United States, like the United Kingdom, and like the Soviet Union. So what they ended up producing was a bunch of duds. Everybody was clueless. People were melting their furnitures, their cooking tops, their woks. In the end, all they were doing was producing a poison. And the same thing, Mao Zedong had many quotas on these farmers. These quotas were unachievable, so their land, their crops, everything was taken away, and it was locked in a storage unit. And the Chinese Communist Party would appoint thousands of local cadres to be in charge of these warehouses where the food was being kept. Now, in ancient times, every time there's a famine that breaks out in any part of China, the emperor would approve for these food storage facilities, these warehouses, to open up the reserve, to send out tens and thousands of pounds of rice and other grains to these areas that's most severely affected by the famine. But the thing is, when the Great Leap Forward happened, when millions of people were starving, these local cadres, they were being told that to not open up these warehouses no matter what, to not hand out the food. As a direct result of this, it's estimated that during the 3-year famine, between 25 to 50 million people would die from this. And even before this, so shortly after the death of Joseph Stalin, right, when Khrushchev took office, he did something that shocked Mao Zedong, because Mao Zedong was always very infatuated by the Soviet ideologies. He was very fascinated by the Bolshevik Revolution, Russia's socialism, Marxism ideologies. And so after Stalin's death, Khrushchev publicly denounced Joseph Stalin for all of his insane actions, which led to the deaths of millions of Soviets. And the Soviet Union would begin a campaign of de-Stalinization. And Mao Zedong, obviously, he would become very concerned. So in 1956, he launched his 100 Flower campaign, and he would announce to the Chinese public that I am going to allow free speech throughout the country. You can write anything you want, you can say anything you want, you can publish anything you want. Whatever you want to teach in school, that is 100% fine. And obviously, that was a lie. So what ended up happening is that the anti-Chinese Communist Party ideologies was sweep throughout the country. And as a direct result of this, it's estimated that upwards of 1 million people were arrested in the year of 1957, and this is where the Chinese gulags begin. One of the most brutal ones was located in the Gobi Desert, and 3,000 people will be sent to this gulag. It's estimated that 2,500 people died due to starvation. Most of them are teachers and university professors. And there was a song that was trending during this time period. You can search it up. And it's literally called Socialism is Good, where they had all the Chinese people were singing this song on the streets. They call it 社会主义好. Then they'll say 社会主义好, 社会主义好, and everybody will be clapping their hands while holding Mao Zedong's red book. It's extremely eerie and daunting, and just thinking about what happened. This is when even Khrushchev, he realized that Mao Zedong was basically out of his mind. And this will lead relationships to sour between China and the Soviet Union, eventually leading to the Sino-Soviet split that happened in the late 1950s into the 60s, when Mao Zedong finally reversed his policies on the Great Leap Forward because the entire country has been completely devastated. One of the key figures responsible for saving the lives of tens of millions of poor Chinese peasants was China's number 2 at the time. His name is Liu Shaoqi. He was Mao Zedong's right-hand man, and he completely opposed the movement of the Great Leap Forward since day one. He was the one who actually went to these rural villages in China to investigate, and he saw the deaths of millions of Chinese peasants. And when everything was said and done, he was just sitting there relaxing one afternoon in the pool of Mao Zedong, going for a swim, right? And Mao Zedong is an excellent swimmer. And while they were just sitting by the pool and relaxing, he told Mao Zedong that this event, the Great Leap Forward, this will go down in history. While the conversation wasn't recorded, this is just a rough idea of what he said. He told Mao Zedong that history is going to condemn us. They'll remember what we did. They'll remember all the horrific atrocities, the tens and millions of deaths, and we're going to end up on the wrong side of history. And this really stuck with Mao Zedong, because right after he told Mao Zedong this in 1962, right after 62, Mao Zedong came up with another plan. This is the precursor to the Cultural Revolution. So between 63 to 66, Mao Zedong started the anti-rightist campaign. So basically, Mao Zedong, his socialist and communist ideologies were considered left-leaning. Anybody that doesn't believe in his socialist ideologies will be considered a radical. And it's estimated between these 3 years, 5.3 million people were arrested. And it's estimated that at least 1 million people died in the gulags, mostly due to starvation. And it was also during this campaign, China's number 2, Liu Shaoqi, he would be arrested. He will be publicly humiliated and being put in prison, where he was also starved. And when he got extremely ill from starvation, and he would sadly pass away alone in isolation in the year of 1969. Remember, this is China's number 2. And what's also very interesting? I've already covered the Cultural Revolution in some previous videos, right? And they had all these red guards that was assembled in Beijing, and they were spread out through the country. During the Cultural Revolution, at least 1 million Chinese people, they were also brutally executed. See, the thing is, these people, these red guards, they were not people from the Chinese Liberation Army. They were not some local warlord. They were not gangsters. All of these people, the red guards, they were all university students holding Mao Zedong's little red book. That's what they're using. Can't you see the similarities of what's happening in the West today? Especially the young women out there who are university educated. Almost every single woman that's in the university in the West, you ask them, are you a feminist? They say, yes, I'm a feminist. I believe that, we need to smash the patriarchy. I believe that women have been subjugated by men throughout history. They say that we must support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They say, oh, I'm vaccinated and 6 times boosted. And glory to Ukraine. And they say that climate change is a disaster. It will destroy all of mankind. We have to switch to electric vehicles. And anybody that supports Donald Trump, anybody that doesn't want to wear a mask, anybody that's anti-vaccine, it's an extremist. Honestly, for me, I went back to school as a mature student. I came back to college at the age of 26. I came back to university at the age of 28. I honestly think, universities nowadays is doing way more harm than good. And it's very frightening that people don't learn about history, right? And look at what happened to all the countries that embraced the socialism, right? It collapsed. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. Look at what happened to Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge, right? Between a quarter to a third of its population disappeared. Look at what happened to Peru, who embraced the socialism. They had their own shining path. And look at what happened to Argentina. You saw their recent election. They embraced socialism. Argentina was once one of the wealthiest nations on earth. Right now, their inflation's at 143%. Their currency is most likely going to be replaced by the US dollar. Just like many other countries in Latin America, they embraced the socialism. You know what's the official currency of Ecuador? It's the US dollar, right? Their currency completely crashed in the year of 1999. United States came in and replaced their currency at the exchange rate of 25,000 to 1. 25,000 to 1. This completely bankrupted every single individual, every single business. During this time period, hundreds of thousands of Ecuadorians would flee to the United States. It's because they opened up their arms and welcomed socialism, because they believed that just like the Chinese back in the 1950s and 60s, and this has transformed into modern woke ideology. And the indoctrination runs very deep, right? And to all the people out there that keep saying, we've seen the recent China-Taiwan crisis, and the West keeps telling you, all these Western propaganda medias, the CNN, the BBC, they tell you that Taiwan's is a free sovereign state, it's a democracy. Well, listen, that's bullshit. I think you guys have no idea what happened to Taiwan and its dark history. It's possibly even darker than mainland China. And did you guys know that it wasn't that long ago? Taiwan was put under a martial law for 40 years. Yes, 40 years. There were some brutal atrocities being committed by the Taiwanese government, the Kuomintang. And I'm going to cover that very soon in the New Year's, because there are elections coming up on January 13th. So I will release a video on the details of Taiwan's brutal white terror and their martial law. I hope you guys have learned something new in this video. And if there's one thing I have to warn you guys, you must never, ever embrace the socialism.